I had been sharing my book reviews online and with librarians for a couple months at that point when I read the book. And then I shared my review of Starfish with the librarian. And she sent it out on social media, and the author herself actually saw it. It was the first time that an author had really shared what I had written, really valued what I had written. And that really got me thinking this could be a career, this could be a real thing.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Today's guest is E-Train, founder and CEO of E-Train Talks. E-Train is a passionate advocate for literacy and education whose mission is to ensure that every child has access to books and the opportunities they provide. Through E-Train Talks, he has spearheaded numerous initiatives to distribute books to underserved communities, foster a love of reading, and empower young minds with the knowledge and inspiration founded within the pages of a book. With a relentless commitment to social change and a heart for service, E-Train has made significant strides in addressing the issues of book deserts, where access to books and educational resources are severely limited. His work has not only brought books to those in need, but has also raised awareness about the critical importance of literacy in breaking the cycle of poverty and opening doors to a brighter future. Join us as we dive into E-Train's remarkable journey, explore the impact of E-Train Talks, and discover how you too can support the mission of ending book deserts and fostering a world where every child can thrive through the power of reading. Well, I am so excited to have E-Train with us, the founder and CEO of E-Train Talks. I am excited to have this conversation with E-Train. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So listen, I know you're a young guy, so there's not a lot, of lead up to your entrepreneurial journey, but perhaps you could share a little bit about who you are and kind of what led you up to founding E-Train Talks. And then we're going to spend a lot of time on E-Train Talks with you.
All right, sounds good. So, hi everybody. My name is E-Train. I'm 13 years old. I am in Sacramento, California. And yeah, like you said, I am the founder and CEO of E-Train Talks. It's now recently become a nonprofit called E-Train Talks Inc. And it all started out by reviewing books, then it became interviewing authors, and now I've given over 1,000 stories that are new and diverse to kids in underserved communities throughout my city of Sacramento, whether the kids are unhoused, whether they're in underserved school districts, or even in the hospital. So that's a little bit about me, but how everything got started was I've always been a voracious reader. I've been reading ever since I came home from the hospital. Maybe not me reading specifically, maybe my parents reading to me. I don't think I could read when I was 1 day old, but
That would
I've
be
always,
amazing if you could have.
that would be. I've always been surrounded by books, as you can see by my huge bookshelf behind me. Whether or if you're on audio, just imagine one. And I've loved books for as long as I can remember. I started reading when I was 2.5, reading about myself specifically, and then COVID hit. I mean, we can pretty much all remember that. It was a crazy time, and I needed an escape. So many kids turn to video games, which are fun, but I specifically turned to books. I read everything from fantasy, nonfiction, realistic fiction. Books were a great escape, and they taught me a lot about myself and how to be a good person. And I realized that there were so many people going through really tough times during COVID. So I joined virtual library book clubs. I talked about my favorite stories on YouTube, on other social media platforms. And then I just sort of kicked off and I met with authors. I talked with authors, the creator of your favorite stories. And I've discussed their journeys. I've discussed my favorite stories. It's been about 2 years now of E-Train Talks being in existence. And it's been an incredibly rewarding and just amazing in general. Just I've learned so much, and I cannot wait to keep going. Only 13, so you don't know how long it's going to go.
Amazing. So let me ask you a question. Does this entrepreneurial bug that you have in starting this business and kind of, making even more out of, your reading love, does that come from somewhere, or are you a first generation entrepreneur in your family?
That's a great question. I think my family, while they're not necessarily entrepreneurs, they do have a sort of spirit of kind of being go-getters, starting new things. I guess you could call my dad one. He not only does sales sort of stuff, but he runs a football camp and he created it. There's NFL alumni that work there and help out with kids who are high schoolers. So he started something new, and I guess none of it was really related to stories at the time when it came to my parents. I think I'm sort of a first generation entrepreneur, but I feel like my family has instilled in me a sort of um uh, like they support me, so I can always really turn back and ask for help, ask for them. They may not be entrepreneurs themselves, but I certainly think that they have that sort of spirit, that love for um bringing out the best in me and bringing some good into the world in any way possible.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, it's been fun watching your journey. And, can you share with, you talked about the love of reading and the time spent there, et cetera. How did the E-Train Talks books podcast come to be? That's podcasting is a relatively newer medium. There are a lot of people who are not in that space. And for somebody your age to kind of enter that space, how did that come to be?
Well, in fifth grade, we were just coming off of COVID, and I took a podcasting class on a platform called OutSchool. OutSchool, it has classes for any different medium, anything you want to learn, it's there. If you want to learn how to create a Rubik's Cube or something, then you can discover that there. But I was really interested in broadcasting and journalism. I still am. But I stumbled upon not just a broadcasting class, but a podcasting class. So they showed me a platform called Anchor.fm, which is now Spotify for podcasters. And it was free, easy to use, but I had to think of a niche. What did I want, to talk about? Because podcasting is all about talking. And I knew that I wanted to talk about books. They've always been my passion. Whether I'm reading nonfiction, fiction, I love it. It's just something that I always turn back to. And that's when I knew, like, books are a true passion. It's not just reading, it's being connected to them and exploring new assets and new facets of reading. So that's how a podcast began, and it's really been continuing since then. But it's also traversed into a YouTube sort of world as well. So it's like both.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've had some amazing authors on your show, on your podcast, YouTube, etc. How do you initially connect with them? Because I think that's maybe a challenge. It maybe even was covered in the podcasting class. I don't know, but I know that one of the major concerns of people who are looking to start a podcast or even continue a podcast is how I'm going to get guests. So, can you share with our listeners how you go about getting these great authors for your show?
That's a great question. How it all started out getting guests is I created a post on social media, specifically Twitter or X now, and I asked if there were any people in the book industry who wanted to be interviewed. I asked if there were authors, if there were book lovers, reviewers, editors, agents, anybody who wanted to share their story. And overnight, I received over 70 authors and people in the book world who responded. They wanted to be interviewed. They really valued my opinion on all these different topics and they valued speaking with me. And that really just changed my entire life. I had enough guests booked for 1 year, if not 2 years, if I said yes to everybody. And I it was really surreal. It was a dream come true. I never would have thought that something like that would be possible. And now I'm not typically asking authors to be interviewed. It depends on their popularity. Sometimes you might have to reach out. But a lot of authors, they reach out specifically to me, whether through their publicists, their agents, editors, or themselves even. They email me. My email is on my website. You can check that out, etraintalks.com. And each week I receive um, like 2 to 3 suggestions of authors to interview, 2 to 3 authors asking and reaching out and really taking the time to, ask for my opinion. I might not say yes to everybody because that can be a lot of work, but I always look deeply into the stories that are sent to me and that are recommended to me. So it's a lot
Sure.
of work, especially now, considering everything that's happened, but it's really rewarding.
Yeah. Do you have like a process or criteria for whether or not they get on or they don't? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
So at the moment, you can see my bookshelf, and if you can't, if whether it's audio, then I'll just sort of describe it right here, where I'm pointing my top shelf on the far right. So just imagine that. That's where all the books that I haven't yet read but have been sent to me are. And that shelf itself is already expanded. I used to have a lot smaller of a bookshelf actually, and ever since I started, it's gotten a lot bigger. But it depends, firstly, on do I have too many books to handle already? And sometimes that might be the case. So I might say no, but a lot of the times I might not respond. I might check back later to see if the author still has availability, because it's not just about author schedules, it's about my own. Because I'm a kid, so I still go to school. I still, um, every day, I go to school, and then I have other stuff that I have to do as well. Still tackling that kid side of me. That's still kicking.
Mhm.
And so there is a bit of a criterion. However, I do always try to look deeply into your stories. And if you're an author listening, feel free to reach out. Check out my website. That's where you can find me. Social media as well. Any way you want to reach out, then I'd be happy to check out your stories. So thank you, writers, if you're watching.
Yeah, I think one of the keys is it sounds like you read every book that of folks that you have on your show. It sounds like, is that
Yep.
accurate?
When I have authors on my show, like you said, I don't necessarily read every single one of their stories because they could have hundreds. But
Sure, of course.
when I'm reached out from writers, they typically talk about one specific story that they recommend that I read, or one specific story that's coming out in the future, and that's typically the book that I like to read, both because it's the newest, so that's definitely something that I take into account, newer topics, newer discussion topics, but also it's the book that they want me to read. So
Right.
that's typically my main criterion. Yeah.
Nice. So listen, I know it's sometimes tough to pick a favorite, right? But I've seen you do some amazing things like interview players and staff at the Sacramento Kings as an example. What interview have you had that really stands out for you?
Well, like you said, I interviewed the Sacramento Kings, their players and personnel. That was a surreal experience. You know, along with books, one of my main passions is watching and playing sports. I love sports. I'm a diehard Sacramento Kings fan specifically. And that was a really cool experience, not just because I got to meet the players who are so many people's heroes, even mine specifically, but also hearing them share. I asked them, what is your favorite book of all time? And who is a teacher that has changed your life? And hearing them answer these questions was so humanizing in a sense. Learning that there are players who might just be seen for their athleticism, but really taking the time to reflect on their childhoods, reflect on other aspects of their lives that are important to them. That was really interesting. But I think an author interview that I really love, really look back upon and reflect on, that has to be my interview with New York Times bestselling author James Ponti. He wrote the City Spy series, the Framed series, the Sherlock Society series, which is coming out in this year, actually. And he's an incredible person. He was able to reach out to a number of different middle grade authors. Middle grade is the age range that I typically review books for and talk to the
Okay.
authors of. He reached out to other New York Times bestsellers. He reached out to other writers because he valued our talk and he really appreciated me taking time out of my day. And he took his time out of his own day, which is very busy because writers, they spend a lot of time, writing. It's kind of their job.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes they can go on a really big grind, maybe 10 hours straight of writing, I've heard. So that was an interview that was really rewarding. That he sent me a lot of authors. They actually sent me sort of letters afterwards, and one said, "Your friend James Ponti," and I keep that by my bedside table because that's just something like, wow, I'm friends with the writer.
Yeah.
I've always looked up to them, and it's been an incredible journey. So that's one that I really like.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And so is your sport of choice for you? Because you said you like sports, like, you like playing sports. Is your sport of choice basketball, or is it something else and you're just a fan of the Sacramento Kings?
So My favorite sports have to be American football, especially when it's football season. I watch with my dad. We are locked on NFL Red Zone. I don't know if any of you have watched that. And
Sure.
7 hours of commercial-free football. I try to watch
Hmm.
every single bit of it. So American football, basketball, and probably tennis. Those are my top three. And I'm not just
Nice.
a fan of one team. I'm also a fan of the sport. So
Hmm.
that's right. I read, but I also do other things.
Yeah, there you go. Well rounded, right? As they say.
Yeah.
So, so what was the impetus? Why did you end up setting up E-Train Talks Inc. as a 501c3? What was the idea behind doing it that way versus just setting it up as a for-profit company?
Right. So there are a lot of reasons. Firstly, I want to bring up how even before it was a nonprofit, I didn't receive any money. Everything went directly to buying new books for kids. It still goes directly to giving new and diverse stories for young readers, young, soon-to-be readers, I guess you can also say. But I really had the inspiration because um, all I had really been able to do was maybe run a couple GoFundMe's to raise money for stories, raise money for new books. And that proved to be a little bit inefficient. I wasn't able to afford the books that kids really deserve because, new books, they can be really expensive. Even if you go on bargain sort of sites, like, for instance, First Book or Book Depot, um, shipping can be a really big struggle. Prices can be, pricey. So becoming a nonprofit allowed me to firstly receive grants, grants from other organizations that want to help out other nonprofits who really need the love. Um, and along with that, as a nonprofit, it gives people the sense that I'm for real. Because people can sometimes talk down to kids. They don't really understand that what they're doing is impactful. They don't really think that kids are even doing the work. They think that there might be someone behind the scenes that's doing everything and they're like a spokesperson. But I'm showing people that I really am making a difference. It's me making the difference. And I like having this title of 501c3 nonprofit. That's just, it's another reminder that kids can really do anything. That's definitely one of the things that I like to share with people as well. Kids can do anything. And for me, it's with stories. I've given new books thousands, and what's extra special is how they are diverse. I know we're going to talk a little bit about banned books
Mhm.
specifically in a bit. And diverse books, they're windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. They're windows into other people's lives. You can learn about other people's cultures. That's super important, growing to be an empathetic and um, accepting person. And they're also mirrors, so you can see yourself in the stories that you read, which is just as important. It shows that you're seen. It shows that people care about you. And I want to show kids specifically, that I care about them, that I am here for them. And then there's sliding glass doors, so you can join cultures, you can join new worlds of, you know, so much. There's so much joy in every culture, every ethnicity, and I want people to be able to experience that so we can all grow to be more accepting and loving people. That's a long winded
I,
answer. But yeah,
I think it's a great answer. I think it's a great analogy. The way you frame that out, I think it's excellent. And I'm a little partial because I love the joy aspect of it too. So because we're all about joy on the Midland Money Mindset. And I would also share with you, at the time of the release of this show, our office, our firm, is actually taking part in a book drive where
that's
we're going to
awesome.
yeah, we're going to be collecting books here at our office, and then collecting them over a few month period and then bringing them to another organization, another 501c3 called the Book Fairies.
Oh, I love
They
that.
take they take those books and then they distribute it to underserved communities where people need books, etc. So we're all about and behind what you're doing, as well as we're doing something similar here, partially inspired by your story. So thank you for being here and sharing that. And now, last year you were featured in Teen Vogue for Banned Book Week. What inspired you? Listen, there's a lot of different facets to this thing, right? You got interested in reading. You used it as a tool to kind of take up time and expand your knowledge during a difficult time, COVID.
Right.
You then collecting books, helping others, create this podcast. And now, you're also saying, hey, I have to be an advocate for literacy. So what made you think about delving onto that side of this conversation?
That is a really good question. I think there were a couple aspects of my journey that really inspired me to join an advocacy route. Firstly, a little bit after I sent out the original tweet asking if there were any authors who wanted to be interviewed, I was asked by Dr. Molly Ness if she could host me on her podcast called End Book Deserts. And I had always known in the back of my mind, I had always just known in general that there were kids who didn't have access to books. I didn't really know how I wanted to tackle that sort of problem. I didn't even know if I could. Um, but then talking with Molly, learning what she does to advocate for literacy, and also just getting a name to the problem, book deserts. For those who don't know, a book desert is an area where books are scarce, where there might be little to none. There might be no libraries. There might be no books in so many people's own homes. Imagine that. No book at all. There's no bookshelf. There's just no chance to really dive into stories. But take out the no chance because I'm giving people a chance. I'm trying my best to make sure everybody has the opportunity to dive into new stories, and it can be really difficult. There actually a lot of the times, specifically about banned books, I made a couple videos talking about my personal opinion, how we should end book banning because all stories deserve to be told. And there were a lot of people who said outrageous, horrible things about what I said. For starters, there were small things like they said that, oh, I'm just reading off a script that my mom created, but and which just really it's hurtful. But I can take that. But there are people that say outrageous things. Like I don't necessarily want to get into that because it like some of the things people said are a little inappropriate.
Yeah.
But
Well, E-Train, I listen, in my view, this all means one and only one thing. If you have haters online and social media outlets, it means you made it because they're hearing what you're sharing. They're hearing what you're doing. And I know it's tough, but, listen, I've had haters myself. And my view is, hey, if they're listening to me and they have something to say, then they obviously heard me. I don't have
right,
to agree with them. I don't have to respond to them, but it means that they're hearing you. So I, try to be in that tunnel vision and, you're always going to have it, and I think that at your stage of life and career, it's probably only the beginning. It's probably only going to get bigger and better from here. So,
yeah, I
you
hope
know,
so.
yeah, stay focused on the good and focus out the bad.
Yeah,
And
and
at the
there
end
were
of it,
haters, but there were also so many people that supported me, that promoted what I was saying, that really agreed with me, and they boosted what I was saying. There were people, adults and trusted adults, who really cared about what I was saying, and that was a wake up call to me. That it's not just about giving books, but it's about connecting with people. It's about sharing your story, sharing other people's stories. When I go into a school, I do school visits for those who don't know, so whether virtual or in person, and when I talk to the kids, I don't just give books like many people might do. I connect with each and every one of the students, whether there's 20 or 100. I may not be able to talk to every single one of them, but what I say, the words, my speeches, I try to help them connect with them, help kids sort of see I care about them, that I'm here for them, and whatever they need, I'm here for. And that's just the really great thing about advocacy, because it's an outlet to show that you care, and I really do.
agreed. And you can tell, by the way. So very kudos to you. We had to wait to schedule this, our recording, because you were busy taking finals.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you said earlier, you're talking about kids who, you know, are kids, but they still have aspirations. They still
Right,
have goals. They still can do things, right?
right.
So, what advice do you have for teens who have a passion, whatever that may be? It doesn't have to be books, it could be whatever it is, their passion, but are hesitant to chase it and go after it. What advice do you have for them?
Well, firstly, finals went great, which is a big relief.
Good to hear.
um,
I figured otherwise mom and dad wouldn't allow you to do the podcast today. So I figured they
yeah.
went well, but yeah.
Hmm. Well, firstly, when you have a passion, there will be naysayers. I talked about that just in the last answer to your question. And what do you do when there are people that hate? Well, firstly, of course, you ignore them, because they don't know what they're talking about, because you're awesome. If you have a passion that you're trying to pursue, you're amazing. Um, and secondly, think about this one message that I like to share. People always say that kids are the future, and maybe that's true, but don't necessarily think like that. You should think like it's not kids are the future, it's kids are the present. I'm a kid that's doing great things, that's trying to help my community, and you can do that too. Whether you help the homeless, whether you give books like I do, whether you pursue passions like music, sports, theater, you are impacting your present. You're making a difference in your own life and the lives of others right now. So take that with you. Don't listen to people that say kids are the future. We are the future, but we're also the present. We were the past. We're always going to be there, and we can make a big impact no matter how old we are. And secondly, for those who want to pursue their own passions and want to reach that first step, what I did is I looked for different classes online. If you really have something that you're interested in, check out different outlets of pursuing that. Whether it's a class online like I did, whether it's going out there meeting other people who might have similar interests. When you meet a community of other kids, of other people who are really in this to, make a difference, to pursue their own passions, that can be really great. It can be a really great welcoming experience for you. So whatever you want to do when you grow up, whatever you want to do when you're, now, however old you are, you can do it. And I truly mean that. You can do anything you set your mind to.
Great perspective. So if you're a teen, a kid listening to this, and you have a passion, go for it. Right? That's
Right.
there's no better time than the present, is what I'm hearing. So go
Yeah.
for it. You have this podcast. You've had a lot of success with it, and I think kids and adults alike. Right? It's something that is talked about by a lot of people. I should have a show. Maybe I should get a show. What advice do you have for people who might be listening to this, whether they're a kid or not, otherwise an adult, and they're thinking of starting a podcast? What advice do you have for them?
That's a great question. So, for those who want to create their own podcast, these are 3 things that I personally love to do, 3 things that I tried in the beginning and they actually succeeded. There's a lot of trial and error that can be involved in creating your own podcast. I experienced a lot of that. But firstly, try and reach out to people. Reach out and see if they'd want to be your guest. Even if they say no, or even if they don't respond and ignore your email, that's okay. Because at least you tried to put your foot through the door and tried to make a connection. That's super duper important in the start of your journey. Because there will be people eventually that say yes. Secondly, find a passion. I was talking earlier to kids and teens specifically who wanted to find their own passions and pursue. But find your own passion if you're an adult who wants to create a podcast as well. Find something that you love, that you really care about sharing, and people are going to see that you love what you're doing. There are people who might have a book podcast and they don't necessarily love books, but you can definitely tell that I love stories. I love them so much. You could say it's my first love, and I'll always love them. It was love at first page, I guess.
There you go.
And a third thing that you can do is, just be yourself. I mean, your parents probably say that all the time, or somebody that's close to you, they might always say, oh, be yourself. And you might not trust that at first, but truly be yourself. Show your love, spread your passion, your admiration for others. Just be you, and people are going to see that you're an interesting person, because we all have something interesting in our hearts and interesting in our souls. So just be you and get working.
I think that's great and very actionable, and people can take that right away and get started. So we talked a little bit earlier about favorites, and I didn't put you on the spot then, but I am going to somewhat now. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, you're asking the tough questions here. That is the toughest question any book lover has ever asked. So I'm going to take a sip of water. This is not coffee. and mull over that a little bit.
Okay.
All right. I think I got it. Okay. So there are 2 answers to this. I know. I'm sorry. 2 answers, but
that's okay.
It'll be snappy. Firstly, up until age 7 or 8, I'd say, I only read nonfiction. I only read biographies, autobiographies, learning about real people's lives. And that sort of got me a little bit bored of reading. I mean, granted, I loved these stories, but there isn't a lot to really discover, especially like if you've discovered so much, if you learned about so many different topics, you want to know more, you want to experience more, you want to get your imagination working. So I discovered the Percy Jackson book series, and I was incredibly hesitant to try it because I'd never really been a big fiction fan, specifically fantasy, because
Mhm.
it had just never been something that I'd really tried. And I tried something new, which is super important, by the way. If you want to start a podcast or if you want to start your own journey,
Mhm.
it's going to be new waters that you're going to have to step into, but you can do it. I did. Um, and I loved Percy Jackson. It really got me interested in other forms of fiction. There were 5 series in the Percy Jackson universe, I guess you could say. And I devoured all of them. I checked out more fantasy, I checked out mystery, I checked out more fiction because there's so much to discover and it really gets your imagination churning. And then a second book that had a really big impact on me, both emotionally and on my book journey specifically, is Starfish by author Lisa Phipps. Now, Starfish is a story that I've reread many, many times, and it's not necessarily the content that really struck me. Well, it is. It's a beautiful book. You have to try it.
Mhm.
But also, I had been sharing my book reviews online and with librarians for a couple months at that point when I read the book. And then I shared my review of Starfish with the librarian. And she sent it out on social media, and the author herself actually saw it. It was the first time that an author had really shared what I had written, really valued what I had written. And that really got me thinking this could be a career, this could be a real thing. If I continue to share my reviews, if I continue to promote authors' books, they're going to see that. And they'll appreciate the good reviews because I love most books that I read. So,
Mhm.
Starfish is a book that continues to have an impact on me today, and I would not be here without it. I wouldn't be here without any of the books because they're all stepping stones on your
Right.
journey.
Right. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And,
Absolutely.
E-Train, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is we're all about joy on the Midland Money Mindset. We talk about it all the time, joyful experiences, joyful lives, etc. And the last question we ask each and every one of the guests that we've had on our 200 plus episodes of this
Woo.
show is what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Well, it is 11:45 a.m. and I have already done something that has brought me joy and has put me on the path to success. There are a lot of hobbies that I enjoy besides reading. As I mentioned, I like sports as well. I like singing, but I also participate in something called Quiz Bowl. It's sort of like an academic decathlon, sort of like a Jeopardy all mixed into one. And it's like Jeopardy but with not necessarily harder but longer and more complex questions. And it can be a lot of hard work. It really it really gets your brain working. And I was able to practice it with some friends, and last year I was able to make middle school nationals, and that's a goal that I have. It's important to set goals if you want to have success in your life. And a goal is to reach that precipice again. And it takes practice. Practice makes perfect. That's what my grandfather always told me, and always still tells me. He talks about the 3 P's: potential, practice, and perfect. Because we all have potential. We can all accomplish anything we set our minds to. But once you have the potential, you have to continue practicing. Work harder, work hard, and you can achieve perfection. Maybe not total perfection, but as much as you can. So I keep using those 3 P's, and that's putting me on the path to success. That's a great question.
Amazing. Well, listen, E-Train, it's been a pleasure having you on the show and you sharing your story with us. We're going to have all of your information in the show notes if people want to connect with you, learn more about you. But if people want to connect and learn more, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Absolutely. So all of my interviews and everything that I do is shared on my website. It is etraintalks.com, ETRAINTALKS.com. I had to spell it out because sometimes
Mhm.
people misspell it.
Sure.
You can also find me on Twitter or X at etrainsworld, ETRAINSWORLD. Hope I said that right. I think I did.
You did.
And you can find me on Instagram at etraintalks. And if you want to learn how to help out and help me on my book journey to get more stories into the hands of kids that truly need them, You can check out my GoFundMe. I have that on my website. And you can, always just support the work that I'm doing in any way, that shape, or form. Because no matter what, it's all about getting kids excited about reading, giving them the chance to read, the opportunity to dive into stories. Books, they really set you on a good path in your life. They teach you new things. They invite you to, just explore new ways to look at the world. They teach you new things. And when you read, you become a great person. So I hope you'll help me on my journey, and check out the work that I do. You might find a new favorite book of yours yourself. So thank you so much, Larry, for having me on. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. You're all amazing, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, E-Train, and enjoy your day as well.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
I want to thank E-Train for being a guest on the Midland Money Mindset. E-Train has a story of inspiration, and there is so much we can all learn from his journey. And he's only 13. I truly believe this young man has a very bright future. Please check out E-Train Talks, and if his story resonates with you and you have the ability to support his efforts, please do it. E-Train, you have a new raving fan in the Midland Money Mindset. E-Train and E-Train Talks can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.